Hi, I'm Arundel County Sheriff Jim Frederick, and welcome to On the Lookout for March 2020. We have an episode full of subjects who have open warrants for addresses throughout Anne Arundel County, with charges ranging from failing to appear or FTAs all the way up to felonies. If you recognize a name or a face, call our warrant tip line at 410-LOOKOUT or 410-566-5688. All right, it's time to go on the lookout.
610-38 coming. 10-4.
From the Northern District, our first subject is Jakara Nikel Green. She's a 27-year-old African-American female. A warrant was issued for her arrest in reference to violation of probation. In June of 2015, Jakara Green was placed on 18 months probation, which was subsequently extended by 2 years for the purpose of paying restitution. Restitution payment was to be made monthly in the amount of $100 and completed by December 26 of 2018. As of January 2017, only one payment of $50 had been made. Her last known address is 7908 Silent Shadow Court, Apartment A in Glen Burnie. The next subject wanted is Nidell Ahmad Green. He is a 41-year-old African-American male. A warrant was issued for burglary in the first degree, burglary in the fourth degree, malicious destruction of property, and theft less than $100. On or about April 16th of 2010, an employee of Extended Stay America located at 104 Chesapeake Center Drive in Glen Burnie discovered an unknown male had been staying in one of the rooms for approximately 1 week. That person did not pay for the usage of the room. An investigation was conducted and it was learned the person responsible for the crime is Nidell Ahmad Green. His last known address is 309 Mountain Ridge Court, Apartment B in Glen Burnie. The next subject is Jeremiah MANGUM Jr. He's a 31-year-old African-American male. An arrest warrant was issued for assault in the second degree and malicious destruction of property. In January of 2018, a call was placed by Jasmikia Mangum in reference to domestic violence. Mrs. Mangum stated that she and her husband got into an argument earlier that day because he was late picking her up from a job interview. When they arrived home, Jeremiah Mangum began ripping up family pictures that were on the living room table. Mr. Mangum then walked to the bedroom closet and removed a tote bag full of pictures and tried to damage it. Mrs. Mangum grabbed the tote bag from him and stood holding the bag on the side of the bed. Mr. Mangum then grabbed a hammer and began to hit the tote bag. He then left her holding the bag in the bedroom and walked into the kitchen and started to destroy items there. He then returned back to the bedroom and jumped on Jasmikia, grabbing her by the neck with both hands as she fell onto the bed. She began to kick him off of her. Then he grabbed the tote bag and Jasmikia also grabbed onto the tote. Being stronger than her, he snatched the bag from her, swung it at her, hitting her in the right shoulder and arm, causing minor cuts and bruises. Mr. Mangum then took the bag into the living room, and at that time she called the police. While calling the police, Mr. Mangum fled the scene and she followed him. She followed him outside and observed him using a red kitchen knife to poke a hole in the rear right tire of her car. His last known address is 404 Summerwind Way in Glen Burnie. Our next person is GIAVANNA Jeannie Williams. She's a 47-year-old African-American female. A warrant was issued for credit card theft and 4 counts of credit card usage between $1,500 and $25,000. In December of 2019, Sharon Tarasco reported while she was at the Panera Bread, 3 of her credit cards were stolen from her purse. She realized the cards were missing when she received an email receipt from a department store in the amount of $2,862 for the purchase of a diamond wedding band. Video footage at several locations revealed an African-American female wearing a camouflage jacket making purchases with the stolen credit cards. In January of 2020, a flyer was distributed of the person identified in the video. Subsequently, a county police detective advised he had charged GIAVANNA Jeannie Williams with credit card theft in 2016, and she appeared similar to the person on the flyer. Photographs from various resources were compared with the video footage, and GIAVANNA Williams was identified as the person making the unauthorized purchases. In addition to the over $2,800 purchase, another purchase was made in the amount of $5,990. Her last known address is 7717 Locust Grove Road in Glen Burnie. Next up is Quinton Levi Gentry. He's a 35-year-old Caucasian male. A warrant was issued for Gentry for violation of probation. In January of 2018, Quinton Levi Gentry was released on 3 years probation for charges pertaining to assault in the second degree. His probation consisted of paying court costs, having no contact with the victim, and to successfully complete an abuser intervention program. As of November 2018, Mr. Gentry has not made contact with his probation agent and has failed to enroll and successfully complete the abuser intervention program. His last known address is 302 Benmere Road in Glen Burnie. Now from the Eastern District, our first subject is Kevin Andrew Brown. He's a 36-year-old Asian male. A warrant has been issued for burglary in the second degree, violation of probation related to CDS manufacturing, and failure to appear on traffic charges. In December of 2006, officers responded to the South River Marina for a complaint of theft from a boat. The victim reported his 23-inch flat-screen television was stolen, which was valued at $1,200. Mr. Brown was observed carrying a box from the area of the victim's boat. His last known address is 41 Fox Run Way in Arundel. Our next subject is Robert George Joshik. He's a 39-year-old Caucasian male. He has 7 warrants for his arrest, including charges of violation of probation for 4th-degree burglary, theft under $100,000, additional thefts, and failure to appear in court for traffic charges. Mr. Joshik has warrants outstanding since 2014, and in October of 2013, the courts were notified of his noncompliance with probation. He was seen in the probation office in June of 2014. He has subsequently failed to make contact with his probation officer. His last known address is 301 Pike Road in Pasadena. The next featured subject is Jerry Leroy Johnson, Jr. He's a 31-year-old African-American male. Mr. Johnson is wanted for 3 times. 2 of the charges involve assault in the second degree, and 1 charge is for escape in the second degree. On September 4th of 2019, Mr. Johnson was assigned to the house arrest program. He notified his agent that he cut off his bracelet and was going on the run because he was unhappy with the way his court hearing concluded. He was instructed immediately to report to the house arrest office, and he refused to do so. His last known address is 8243 Elverton Drive in Pasadena. Mr. Michael Anthony Temple is our next wanted subject. He's a 34-year-old Caucasian male. He has a warrant that's been issued for CDS possession with intent to distribute narcotics, 6 counts of CDS possession, not marijuana, and marijuana possession. On February 3rd of 2010, county detectives executed a search and seizure warrant in reference to a home invasion and shooting that occurred at the residence. During the search of the house, a semi-automatic handgun was located, which contained a loaded magazine. Various pills suspected of being CDS were located. The street value of the narcotics is over $8,900, and over $6,600 in currency was seized. His last known address is 421 Greenland Beach Road in Pasadena. The next subject is Joshua Michael Thompson. He's a 33-year-old Caucasian male. 5 warrants have been issued for violation of probation involving burglary in the first degree. Mr. Thompson violated his probation for not getting permission before changing his address out of state, changing jobs, and obeying all laws including jailable traffic offenses, and to not illegally possess, use, and sell any narcotic drug, controlled substance, and to pay all fines. It's quite a list. His last known address is 7870 White Coves Road in Pasadena. All right, let's take a quick break from being on the lookout for wanted people to help some of our furry friends. The Sheriff's Office has partnered with the SPCA of Anne Arundel County to feature an adoption animal each month through our social media community connections. The first pet we recently featured was Daisy, a 7-year-old pit bull mix who's been in and out of the shelter since 2013. She was great with our deputies when they visited for photos, and Daisy is still looking for a forever home. You can visit the SPCA at 1815 Bay Ridge Avenue in Annapolis. You can also call to ask about Daisy, about other services available from the SPCA, or to find out how you can help. Now, if Daisy's not right for your home, perhaps she could be someone else's friend for life. Let's help her get adopted, so please let family and friends know about this great new partnership that we have. Go to the SPCA website or the Anne Arundel County Sheriff's Office Facebook page for more information about featured pets. All right, now let's get back to On the Lookout.
610, 38 coming. 10-4.
The next person featured is Daniel Shane Dickerson. He's a 30-year-old African-American male. A warrant has been issued for assault in the second degree, driving a motor vehicle on the highway without a required license, and unauthorized removal of property. In September of 2019, county police were dispatched to 1480 Burger Street in Odenton for a report of a domestic violence. Officers made contact with the victim, Ms. Erica Denise Shern. Ms. Shern reported that the father of her child, Mr. Daniel Shane Dickerson, who resides in the residence, had assaulted her. Ms. Shern stated the argument was over him borrowing the car and not bringing it back in a timely manner. She explained Mr. Dickerson pushed her once in the chest and left the residence, taking her car. Dickerson currently has only an ID and his driver's license is suspended. His last known address is the same address there at 1480 Burger Street in Odenton. Mr. Giovanni Anthony DIPAOLA is the next subject. He's a 27-year-old Caucasian male, and a warrant has been issued for 4 counts of theft under $1,500. In June of 2019, county police responded to 1002 Guy Drive in Glen Burnie for a report of a theft that occurred previously. The victim, Ms. Lori Butler, advised a friend of hers, Mr. Giovanni Anthony DiPaola, had been remodeling her home. On June 12th of 2019, Ms. Butler noticed several of her rings, currency, and tools were missing. Ms. Butler stated she knew and trusted Mr. DiPaola long enough to give him the keys to her house and combination number to the lock to her shed. After filing the report, Ms. Butler checked area pawn shops and located some of her jewelry and tools. Mr. DiPaola was positively identified by his Maryland driver's license. His last known address is 7560 Race Road in Harmons. The next subject is Adam Robert QUEZADA. He's a 34-year-old Caucasian male. A warrant has been issued for Mr. QUEZADA for assault in the second degree. In November of 2018, county police responded to Western District for a report of domestic violence. The victim was identified as Ms. Candace Darlene Shackleton. Ms. Shackleton stated in November of 2018 her fiancé, Mr. Adam QUEZADA, assaulted her. Ms. Shackleton explained she was walking out of the kitchen where Mr. QUEZADA came up behind her, placed both his arms around her, and started to squeeze. She stated she told him to let her go, but he squeezed harder, and he stated he did not have to let her go. While doing so, Mr. QUEZADA was cursing at her and advised they needed to talk. Shackleton stated she was able to break free, and he backed her up against the wall. She stated to Mr. QUEZADA if he did not back up from her, she was going to call the police. He then let her walk out of the kitchen area. She stated when he was squeezing her, it caused her pain, and she subsequently had a bruise on her right arm. Ms. Shackleton stated that Mr. QUEZADA lost his job. She also advised that he had been using drugs for the past few months. His last known address is 7206 Winding Hills Drive in Hanover. The next subject is Cameron Keontae Brown. He is a 26-year-old African-American male, and a warrant has been issued for him in reference to assault in the first degree, 2 counts of assault in the second degree, and reckless endangerment. On November 11th of 2019, county police responded to 129 Warwickshire Lane, apartment L in Glen Burnie for a domestic dispute. Upon arrival, the victims were identified as Diamond Elise Wood and her daughter, who is 6 years of age. Her daughter was holding a tissue to her nose and blood was observed on the tissue. Ms. Wood stated an argument ensued between her and the father of her son, Cameron Keontae Brown. The argument became heated and Ms. Wood was punched 8 to 10 times in the head, causing her to fall to the floor in her bedroom. Once on the floor, Brown proceeded to slam Ms. Wood's head into the dresser several times. Violent. She stated she lost consciousness and could not remember in detail what occurred after her head hit the dresser. Her daughter began to hit Brown to get him to stop. He grabbed her by the shirt and pushed her away. When Brown was leaving the residence, he hit the child in the nose with a shoe, causing it to bleed. Brown left the scene. Ms. Wood and her daughter were transported to Harbor Hospital. The last known address of the subject is 8200 Dunfield Court in Severn. From the Southern District, our first subject is Andy William Sparks. He's a 57-year-old Caucasian male. He is wanted for child abuse, third-degree sex offense in the fourth degree, and assault in the second degree. An additional warrant has been issued for 11 counts of credit card theft. On September 28, 2005, Mr. Sparks' child advised the school nurse she had been sexually abused by her father. It is alleged he tried to touch her on the chest on top of her clothing. Subsequently, she moved away from him and she contacted her mother. His last known address is 202 Lakeview Avenue in Edgewater. The next subject is RICO DEWAYNE HICKS. He's a 36-year-old African-American male. An arrest warrant has been issued charging Mr. Hicks with disorderly conduct and a false fire alarm. Mr. Hicks also has 7 additional warrants, including 2 FTAs for CDS possession, not marijuana, 4 FTAs for theft under $100, and 1 failure to appear for driving on a suspended license. In November of 2019, officers responded to Arundel Medical Center for a report of disorderly conduct. Upon arrival, the medical staff explained to the officers that Mr. Hicks had left after receiving medical treatment and his transportation had come and left. When Mr. Hicks learned this information, he became irate and threw a cup of ice at the staff. When finally leaving the building, Mr. Hicks pulled the fire alarm. His last known address is 5283 Shadyside Road in Churchton. Next up is Joseph Anthony Isaacs. He's a 32-year-old African-American male, and he is wanted for conspiracy of burglary in the first degree. In November of 2016, Mr. Isaacs was found guilty of conspiracy of burglary in the first degree, and as a result, he was sentenced to drug court and had to comply with those conditions. In January of 2020, Mr. Isaacs failed to comply with the conditions. His last known address is 51 Clay Street in Annapolis. Next up is DeAndre Myers. He's a 41-year-old African-American male, and a warrant has been issued for violation of probation for CDS, manufacturing and distribution, assault in the first and second degree. Mr. Myers was sentenced to supervised probation in November of 2017 as a result of being found guilty of CDS manufacturing and distribution. In November of 2019, Mr. Myers failed to report to parole and probation as ordered. His last known address is 909 Monroe Street in Annapolis. Mr. Jonathan Ray Hendricks is our next subject. He's a 40-year-old Caucasian male, and a warrant has been issued for assault in the first degree and violation of a protective order. On January 3rd of 2020, officers responded to the Baymart in Annapolis for a report of domestic violence. Upon arrival, officers spoke with Kristen Steinis, who advised she was assaulted by her boyfriend, Jonathan Hendricks. Ms. Steinis had obvious injuries to her face and head. She advised that the subject hit her with closed fists, causing her glasses to fall off and to get a bloody lip. His last known address is 216 Dubois Street, Unit B in Annapolis. All right, bonus segment time for child support. The following subjects are wanted for outstanding child support, and their charges stem from failing to appear in court. Our first subject is Alfonso Garcia Reyes. He's a 42-year-old Hispanic male with a preset bond amount of $2,000. His last known address is 610 Americana Circle, apartment 108 in Annapolis. Next up is Evelyn Elizabeth Armiger. She's a 46-year-old Caucasian female with a preset bond amount of $9,000. Her last known address is 946 Fern Trail in Crownsville. Next is Jennifer Lynn Wilkins, a 32-year-old Caucasian female with a preset bond amount of $6,000, and her last known address is 4120 Waterview Drive in Edgewater. The next person is LONNELL Antoine Arrington. He's a 43-year-old African-American male with a preset bond amount of $3,000. His last known address is 6807 Greenvale Parkway in Hyattsville. William R. Heron is next up. He's a 40-year-old Caucasian male with a preset bond amount of $10,000. His last known address is 217 4th Avenue Southwest in Glen Burnie. Next on our list is Raymond Lawrence OUTEN. He's a 36-year-old Caucasian male with a preset bond of $7,000. His last known address, 1731 Saunders Way in Glen Burnie. John William August Jr. is next up. He's a 39-year-old Caucasian male with a preset bond amount of only $750. His last known address is 106 Mirable Lane in Baltimore. And finally, Thomas Henke is a 45-year-old Caucasian male with a preset bond amount of $5,000. His last known address, 7932 Henslow Court in Pasadena. Before closing out the show this month, I want to thank you for watching and for those callers who provided tips about the subjects we have previously highlighted. If you've had contact with or know the whereabouts of any of the individuals we've covered today, or any others you believe have unserved warrants, please call the Warrant Tip Line at 410-LOOKOUT or 410-566-5688. So in the last 2 weeks, we've had 6 tips for wanted subjects, and I'm happy to say the Sheriff's Office is 6 for 6 on those, with 6 arrests and clearing those warrants. And we want to thank you again for doing that. So thanks for watching. I look forward to working with you the rest of this year to take wanted people off the streets. Until next time, keep your eyes open and stay on the lookout.